In this video, we're going to be reviewing the venerable 1911. Still king after 110 years. This year marks the 110th birthday of what many still believe is the greatest handgun ever made, the 1911. And to give some perspective as to what this means, so looking back 110 years ago, at the time the 1911 came out, most people were still riding horses, were just starting to drive Model T automobiles, and most people still didn't even have telephones in their homes. Yet at the time, John Moses Browning developed what is many people believe to be the greatest handgun ever designed, and still the preferred handgun for most serious shooters even today. So looking back prior to 1911, how do we get to the evolution of the 1911? Just a little history here real quick. Prior to 1911, U.S. soldiers were issued the .38 long Colt caliber revolvers, and in this case it was in the Philippine Wars against the Moro warriors. And what they found was in many cases the Moro warriors were getting shot multiple times and were still coming at the troops. And they quickly determined that the .38 long Colt provided very poor stopping power. And as a result of that, ironically, they started reissuing the old 1873 Colt single action revolvers that you commonly would see in a cowboy movie back to the military because they're using the more respected and higher stopping power .45 Colt cartridges. Now, eventually this led to the famous Thompson-Lagarde U.S. military tests in 1904, and during these tests they actually used live and dead cattle, of all things, to determine what was the best stopping power or caliber for the future and what the military needed in a handgun. And as a result, they determined that military pistols should have calibers of no less than .45 caliber. As a result from that, in 1906, the .45 ACP, or automatic Colt pistol caliber, was developed, leading to the adoption in March of 1911 by the U.S. Army of the now 1911 or the M1911 handgun, and followed by the Navy and the Marine Corps, which adopted in 1913. The first major actions for the 1911 happened in the Mexican War against Pancho Villa, but the biggest action, of course, came in World War I, and made very famous by the use of then Sergeant Alvin York, who reportedly killed 6 Germans in one battle with his 1911. So quickly became very popular with the soldiers, and as they came home, and of course used in subsequent wars, the popularity and the notoriety of the 1911 simply continued to grow. After World War I, new variants started coming out, or improvements to the 1911, including what is now referred to as the 1911A1, where you saw different improvements, for example, around the sights and the arched mainspring housing, shorter triggers, as well as longer grip safety spurs and things of that nature, which became known as the 1911A1. And in civilian as well as law enforcement use, law enforcement started quickly adopting the 1911 as well, in both the .45 ACP as well as the .38 Super, very much used most popularly by the Texas Rangers, the FBI, Border Patrol, etc., and of course various police departments throughout the nation. And the 1911 continued to stay in use with the military until 1985, when the U.S. military adopted the M9 9mm pistol to be more in compliance with the 9mm round used by NATO. Even though the U.S. military adopted it, the 1911 still remained popular and in use for many special operation units, including today. Now, as far as some civilian variants that came out over the years, of course, the traditional 1911 came out in the 5-inch government model. Over the years, there were also developed the 4 1/4, what were called commander models, both in the lightweight commander models where they had aluminum frames, as well as the steel frame models. And they first started introducing the spurred hammers as well. And then you're going to hear things like the different series that came out over the years, especially with the Colt. So in 1970, Colt came out with their Series 70 models, which many still claim today, and I agree, that those are the best models that are made design-wise because of what came after them. What came after them in 1983 was the Series 80 models. And the Series 80 models incorporated a new internal firing safety pin system. So to show you the difference on this, when you look at a standard 1911, you're going to see 3 standard safety systems. You're going to see the grip safety, the manual safety, as well as the trigger. But this is a Series 80 Colt when it came out. And by the way, all of my handguns have been safety checked before the video. With the Series 80 models, they incorporated a force safety, which you can see here with a plunger. So if you ever want to check a 1911 to see if it's a Series 80, simply do what I'm doing here and then look at the back of the slide towards the rear and see if there's a plunger here. If there's a plunger here, it's typically a Series 80 model, and this Series 80 plunger is activated by a lever which is activated by the trigger. And this is why a lot of people don't prefer the Series 80s, because of course it can affect the trigger pull, which of course is one of the bigger selling points or the reasons why people like 1911 so much. So many people today will continue to look for the Series 70s when they buy the 1911s for this very reason alone. Now today the 1911 design is the worldwide standard for competition pistols. If you ever look at all the major competitions in shooting sports, you're going to always see, especially on the custom designs, you're going to see some variants of the 1911 design. And it also, they did this because it's utilizing the modern shooting technique, which was developed over the years. Now, some of the other things about the 1911 that people really like, the first thing is the natural grip angle. So if you look at the 1911, a lot of people will tell you this feels the best in their hand, and it does for me as well. When you pick up the 1911, it points naturally. The grip angle is a natural pointing grip angle compared to many of the handguns that are out there today, including Glocks. Glocks oftentimes have a more pronounced grip angle, which means your natural point of fire, if you're used to shooting a 1911, tends to be more elevated. You're also going to notice that the grips, since it is a single stack magazine in most cases, tend to be narrower or slimmer grips. So as a slimmer grip, slimmer profile. And you compare that, for example, to a Glock. So let's look at a Glock for comparison. Glock, of course, are double stack magazines, but you can see in this case the size difference both in the grip as well as the frame. So that's one of the reasons why people really like the ergonomics of the 1911, why people still argue to this day that this is ergonomically the best handgun ever developed. One of the things you're also going to notice about people, especially myself, when I shoot handguns, is it is easier for me to shoot one-handed, especially based upon the slim profile, the grips, the angle, etc. I can shoot more accurately with a 1911 than I can with almost any other handgun, including, for example, Glocks. The slim design also makes it great for concealed carry, especially in the compact models, which are even shorter models, shorter grips, shorter frames of the 1911s. Now, the weight of the 1911 has traditionally been at a full steel length, has been around 40 ounces, but you can drop around 8 ounces with the aluminum frame models. So, and I've done a number of reviews on different aluminum frame models before. I have both the full size, for example, you can see on the Dan Wesson Vigils, and as well as the Commander sizes on the Rugers, as well as the Colts that I've done before. But generally, when you go to an aluminum frame, it sheds off around 8 ounces or about the same weight as a fully loaded magazine. So it also makes them easier to carry that way as well. Now, as far as caliber variants over the years, you've seen 48 ACP, 38 Super, 10 millimeter, 9 millimeter, 40 Smith & Wesson, 22 long rifle. There's a whole bunch of different calibers that the 45 has been introduced in. But again, people tend to keep gravitating back to the 45 ACP. And when you look at it here, especially on the film, a lot of people argue that over the years, the 9mm, which you see here on the left, has really improved. The bullet technology has improved to the point where it's become effective enough for people to carry comfortably and have enough stopping power. But a lot of that is predicated on the powders as well as the bullet designs that you use. And if you have the ability, for example, to shoot really good hollow point type bullets on a 9mm, yes, it can be effective. But one of the great things about a 45 ACP is no matter what bullet design you use, including the full metal jacketed design, it is such a heavy, hard-hitting bullet that you can even shoot inferior loads of 45 ACP and still have very good stopping power. And that's one of the reasons why people really like the 45 ACP, is even though it's a slower and heavier bullet, it hits very hard. And there are also variants now out, for example, that hard cast, as well as the fact that you can get these in plus P type loads. So you can upload these, which means you need to shoot them typically in the heavier guns just so they can handle the recoil and shoot them more effectively. But again, the 45 ACP, you can shoot almost any type of 45 ACP load, no matter what the technology of the bullet, and it's still a highly effective load as opposed to 9mm where you have to be more selective with it. Now, the price ranges for 45s, especially if you're new to this, they vary greatly within the market. You're going to see cheap 1911s in the market starting in the low 400 range, and these are typically imports from places like Rock Island Armory, Thesis, Taurus, Cimarron, SDS, etc., all the way up to, you're going to see in the many thousands, up to $4,000+ for things like, you know, really high-end custom Nighthawks, Wilson Combats, Ed Browns, Dan Wessons, Les Bears, STIs, and things of that nature. So there's a huge price difference as well between the 1911s, and that really comes down to what types of upgrades do you get on your 1911 as opposed to a standard traditional A1 model. So some of the upgrades that you're going to commonly see on, for example, higher end or upgraded models of 1911s or standard A1s include the following. The first thing is better sights. So for example, in the past, you used to have a sight installed by a gunsmith on the front side if you wanted to change out, as opposed to dovetail sighting. Now, on the high-end models, you have dovetail sightings on both the back and the rear so that you can change out the sights. And a lot of new sight options have come out, in addition to, you know, tritium night sights, to red dots, to fiber optic type sights, any types of sighting systems you want to run here. There's so many great options now on the sights, and it's especially important when you're buying to get dovetails in the front and the back so you can quickly change out, easily change out both. Night sights, day sights, any types of sight systems. You're also going to see improvements in the trigger systems. So the trigger systems, a lot of these you're going to see are what are called skeletonized or, you know, open type trigger systems. They also include over travel adjustment screws on here that you can set, and you can change things like the poundage, the breakage, the resets, things of that nature. And one of the things that make 1911 so accurate is the fact that these are single action triggers. And many times you can adjust these trigger pulls down to 5, 4, even 3 pounds. Very low trigger pulls with great resets, which allow for really, really good accuracy. You're going to also see things like flat and checkered mainspring housings in the rear, which are pretty standard now on medium to high end 1911s. You're going to see beaver tail grip safeties that extend beyond the standard grip safety, as well as memory humps. You're going to see beveled mag wells that allow for easier reloading of magazines. You're going to see better grips. So for example, instead of the standard grips, you're going to see a lot of high-end, you know, Coca-Cola type grips, you know, all types of custom grips that are out in the market today to really dress up the gun. You can have standard 1/4-inch grips to slim panel grips. You're going to also see extended thumb safeties like you see here, as opposed to the standard safeties you would see, for example, on an A1. You can also see that there are ambidextrous safeties, so lefties and righties can now shoot. Or if you switch hand on your shooting drills, you can use an ambidextrous safety as well. They also have rounded skeletonized hammers. You can also see that they have undercut trigger guards in some of the upgraded models. So that's where you cut under here, under the trigger guard. It helps with a little bit better and higher hold on the frame of the gun. There's also lower and flared ejection ports that you can see pretty standard on these as well. Front and back slide serrations. I don't typically use these much, but some people want to do these in press checks and things like that. So again, it's another option you're going to see on here. Better metal finishes. So there's different textures now, different types of colors, different coatings, stainless steel, you know, polished stainless steel. There's all different types of options on the market today for different types of finishes. You're also going to see changes in things like the guide rods. Now there's things like full-length guide rods as opposed to the standard guide rods. You can also get flat springs for your guide rods as well that have longer life. There's also better fits and finishes between the slide and the frame, and then the bushing and the barrel to the slide. All these types of things that are done typically by hand by gunsmiths that make these guns much more accurate when you're firing them. You're going to also see in some high-end models, you're going to see some front strap checkering as well. Again, this is present on some of these, but not all of these. This is one of the more expensive pieces of custom work that they do on these, as well as the fact that we've moved beyond the traditional 7-round magazines. They now have 8-round, really good high-end magazines like the Wilson Combats that you've seen me talking about before. Now, so here's my advice, especially if you're buying 1911s or you want to buy a 1911 for the first time. My first recommendation is don't buy a base model 1911, a typical A1 model. So you might see these on your really cheap models. You might see these on the Springfield mil-spec models. Even though they look nice and very nostalgic, eventually what's going to happen is, in most cases, most often, you're going to want to upgrade a lot of these features that we're talking about, especially things around, for example, your sights and your triggers and things of that nature. And the reason why I say that is, in many cases, for example, you see, especially with guns here on the table, for example, like on the Springfields, the Springfield loaded model includes many of these features that I already talked about, but it only costs a few $100s more than, for example, the base A1 mil-spec model. So my recommendation always is spend a few $100s more to get these upgraded features we're talking about, because it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more than that if you have to go to a gunsmith and have them put them in for you and then custom fit them. It's better off that you have them done within the factory. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to get the most high-end 1911s, but spend a couple $100s more to get, you know, features and guns like the Springfield loaded or the range officers or the Ruger SR, you know, 1911s, things like that, where you spend a couple $100s more, but you really get a lot more value for the gun. If you like to carry your 1911s and you want to carry them often, you might also want to consider to get the aluminum frame models. So there's a number of great aluminum frame models out there, and I've done reviews on all these. For example, one of my favorite is the Ruger SR 1911 lightweight commander model with an aluminum frame. And of course the Dan Wesson, which we've also done a review on as well. This is a more higher end 1911 with a aluminum frame, and again, cutting off about 8 ounces of weight, or a typical magazine, makes it a lot easier to carry. And you might not think that 8 ounces is a lot of weight, but the reality is when you carry it around all day, you'll notice the difference. Another thing to consider if you're buying a 1911 is don't buy something that you're too afraid to get dirty or to go out and shoot. I've also seen people buy really, really high-end 1911s and they're just too afraid to take them out of the box, to shoot them, to wear them, to take them out anywhere. The reality is you want something that you do want to be able to get dirty and you do want to be able to use, right? And not just something that you can take out periodically and take to the range, but something that's a little bit more durable. And the final thing is you want to choose reliability over fit and finish. So a lot of times I've seen people get really high-end 1911s, but the fit and finish are so tight that it can take away from the reliability of the handgun. There's always a balance between the two. So the fit and finish will improve, for example, in many cases, the accuracy of the 1911, but most of those 1911s are going to shoot a hell of a lot more accurately than you are. So the reality is you want to make sure that you veer on the side of reliability, and that's what I do as well. Even though I like high-end 1911s, I also prefer to have the reliability first over that, which means I want to be able to take them out in the elements. I want to be able to take them on hunting trips or potentially get them dirty and know that they're always going to go bang. So that's one of the most important things to remember as well if you're buying, for example, 1911s for the first time. So 110 years ago, and here we are, we still are talking about the 1911, and it's still what many people believe to be the greatest handgun design ever made. And what else from that time frame can you still hold such recognition around? It's truly remarkable. On a final and personal note, when I asked my son recently what was his favorite handgun, he pointed to the 1911. John Moses Browning must have been smiling that day, and I sure was as well. So happy birthday to the 1911, 110 years strong, and continuing to lead the world as one of the greatest, if not the greatest handgun design ever developed. If you like this video or like this channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.